Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Still not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the 47th time, but for the first time, I'm going through this series looking for what Stargate is trying to teach us. That's right. I am looking for those sci-fi messages, those messages that sci-fi is uniquely positioned to tackle, messages that hold up a mirror to society, things that give us hope that things can be better in the future, or even just teach us how to be better human beings to one another.
We're going to see if any of that shows up in this week's episode. We're watching Serpent's Song. In the last episode, when you told me that was the name of the episode, I guessed that Apophis is going to be in this one. It says Serpent, and that tends to have been the pattern.
Glad you picked up on that.
Right, and there's going to be some sort of a siren song that's going to beckon to SG-1. Let's see if that's what happens in this episode. But before we watch that, Brent, why don't you tell me about this one?
Well, today's episode is the 18th episode of Season 2, or is it the 18th episode of Season 2? Entitled Serpent Song. The original air date was January 6th, 1999. For anyone keeping track, that is 1 week prior to last week's episode, last week being holiday that we did. It's basically more chicanery with the viewing order, Jeff, that absolutely does not matter. Watch them in any order you want. Very few of these episodes, especially this early in the show, really matter which order you watch them in.
I love it when it doesn't matter.
Does really not matter. So I don't know why they go from one order to the other. Anyway, there are two people of note I would like to point out in this episode before we get going. You're going to see neither on screen, unfortunately. The first one is our writer. The writer for today's episode is none other than our good friend, Catherine Powers.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
She's back. This is Code of Honor Lady, Emancipation. She brought us such hits, Jeff, as Fire and Water.
Thor's Hammer.
She did bring us Thor's Hammer and Thor's Chariot. She did both of those. She also brought us Enigma, the very cool episode Enigma, where we were introduced to the Tolan.
Yeah.
As she did Brief Candle, which we liked quite a bit. Remember, that's where Jack got old really fast. So here's the question. Are we going to like this one or not? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out here in just a few moments. But this is Catherine Powers. This is her final entry in for Season 2. The other one I want to direct is a newcomer to the Stargate franchise. This one is directed by a guy named Peter DeLuise. Does that name ring a bell to you, Jeff?
Like Dom DeLuise?
This is his son.
Really?
He is the brother of David and I have David and David DeLuise in the notes over here.
Dom, David, David, and Peter. DDP.
I forget who it is. Anyway, there's all three of them. All three will make, all three of the DeLuise brothers, Peter included, will make appearances throughout the course of the show. It kind of becomes a family thing a little bit. I'll point them out to you when they appear. But like I said, this is the first episode he is involved with. He's directed a few other things. He is going to go on to direct 57 episodes of SG-1.
Oh my God.
Which is more than any other director through the entire franchise. Add in Atlantis and Universe, he's going to helm a grand total of 78 episodes throughout the course.
Wow.
As you may have guessed, he will eventually join the production full-time in Season 4 as a creative consultant, which is going to put him in the writing room. He will eventually go on to pen 20 episodes of Stargate, along with directing 78 episodes of Stargate. I did not look to see if he ever wrote and directed a single episode, if any of those are crossover. I do not know. He might not have. I bet our fantastic audience out there would be like, yes, he did it with these over here. Let's see here. What else? He also in Season 7 gets elevated from creative consultant to producer. And by Season 8, he becomes a supervising producer. I don't know how that's exactly different from a showrunner or an executive producer, but his title there will be supervising producer as early as Season 8 here in SG-1. So he's going to be around, pretty heavily involved guy in the creation of the Stargate stuff. By the way, I would say Stargate universe, but that's more than just the one show. He's very involved, very, very involved. Like I said, we will see him from time to time. Do we see him more than once? I don't know. Well, I promise you, we'll catch him. Which, by the way, that's not something unique to him. We see most of the Brad Wright and Robert C. Cooper and Dan Shea as Sergeant Seiler, who's the He's the stunt coordinator for the show. Martin Wood's around. Like we'll see these guys. They make cameos all the time. It's just part of the fun of Stargate.
That's cool.
Anyway, with that, Jeff, I have nothing else to tell you about this episode. So it's time to do the thing where we go watch the episode. If you guys are joining us for the very first time, welcome to the show. Here's how this works. Jeff and I are going to go watch this episode right now. And by go, I mean, we're actually going to sit right here and we're going to press a few buttons and it's going to pop up like right down here, kind of in between us a little bit. So for our audience folks out there, our audio folks out there, hey, head over to youtube.com and you can catch our reactions to this episode live as they happen. If you want to join the full unedited folks, if you want to join the folks who get the full unedited version, head over to our Patreon page. The most updated link is down in the notes below, and you guys can check that out for a low fee.
Because if you are an audio listener, you're amazing, and we love that you're listening to this, but you're about to gate into the future. You're going to skip over the reaction altogether. You're going to hear my for the first time reaction when we come back, and Brent's going to share any of the sci-fi messages that he might have found in this one. Brent, let's listen to the Serpent song.
Chevron 7 locked.
All right, Jeff, so we have just watched Serpent's song. Welcome back to all of our audio listeners who have just gated right here into the future. We finally caught up with you. Jeff, take us through it. How was your first time watching experience of Serpent's song?
Just a few minutes into this one, I was like, is this the gold ducatification of Apophis?
Yeah.
Like, this is where we get more insight into him. Maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. Not really the case. This is a lot more complex version, though, than Gold. Like, Gold Ducat was just a dude who, like, you know, had a lot of stuff going on. This is two dudes with a lot of stuff going on. So the cool thing, one of the cool things in this episode is we got to meet Apophis's host.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So he was a scribe way back in ancient Egypt, and just seemed like a guy. I don't know the actor's name for Apophis. I've never really paid attention before.
Peter Williams.
Yes. Great job. The tone of his voice, the way he kind of carried his shoulders changed a little bit. You could tell when he was being host and when he was being Apophis. But even as Apophis, as things went down and it continued, he got more vulnerable. And like at the very end, you know, one of the last things he said is, I'm afraid. And I believed that, you know, just the acting really, really brought this thing home. So we got the concept of this guy named Sokar, ancient Gould, powerful Gould that at some point he was like the ruler of all the system lords. And apparently now he's back and he's going after Apophis. At the same time, we got to see Martufa. Is that his name? Martufa?
Martoof. Yeah, just Martoof.
Martoof again. Or Shade Hada if you're a 100 fan. But we got to see the Tok'ra and Martoof again. Brent, I am staking the claim right now that the Tok'ra are working with Sokar.
Ooh.
Martoof just knows way too much and is way too confident about what his next moves are going to be, with the equipment that he has and everything. He was way invested in getting them to send Apophis through the gate back to Sokar.
Can I poke a hole in that?
Okay.
I'm not saying you're wrong. Lots of times, though, they have told us they have operatives out there. They have their secret people out there. They have their people out there collecting information. They've told us that multiple times. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong. Also, they do have lots of spies out there that give them all sorts of information.
But to me, it's not so much, it's not just that they have all that information. It was the urgency. They had, hey, Sokar wants his thing and you better give him this thing.
Better give it to him now. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just, throwing stuff out. That's all. That's just throwing it out.
I liked the additional dimensions to Apophis in this. I liked that he's not just bad guy anymore. He's still a bad guy, but like he's got a little more humanity to him now, and a little more sympathy. Not like in the sense of like, oh, maybe he's kind of a good guy, but in the sense of like, there's a human there, a Tauri there that is suffering in this unending nightmare.
Yep.
I loved Teal'c. Teal'c takes it away for me in this episode. Just his posture, his voice, everything. He's just like, I have waited so long for this, and I am going to enjoy every second of his suffering.
I'm sorry. Just while you're talking about Teal'c, can I just dive into something? I said this to you while we were going through the recording,
Yeah.
but the audio folks didn't get to hear me say this. There's that moment at the end when Apophis has died and Teal'c comes into the room. He was not there to see the death.
He was not.
He comes into the room and he's like, oh, there he is. And then the next shot we get is Teal'c carrying Apophis's shrouded body and throwing him through the gate. And I said, when I saw that, I was like, I actually get Teal'c here. I really get Teal'c here. My biological father and I, unfortunately, I didn't know him very well growing up. He was never a huge part of my life. Not for lack of want on my part. He just chose not to be there.
Yeah.
He did try to come back into my life a little bit when I was an adult, and it just never really worked. And I tried reaching out. I tried those things, and my dad, unfortunately, he just wasn't a great dude. I hate to say it, just wasn't a great dude. Literally the last 2 words he ever spoke to me were F you.
Yeah, he told me that. That's
but I remember when he passed away, I was in Key West. I was on spring break with some college buddies when he passed away. And I got a phone call saying, you need to come up here because literally I am the only one who can like sign paperwork and stuff for him. Like if I didn't go, so I was like, okay, fine. And I remember I got up there and I was outside of his, he was in full on heart failure, full on hospice. Like he was done. And I was standing outside. I was talking on the phone to my mom. I was like, he's just stubborn enough. He's enough of a jerk. Maybe he's just going to pull through, and they came out and like, actually he just passed.
Oh,
like I wasn't in the room when it happened. Right. And I remember walking in and just kind of, there he was. And I was like I kind of saw something in Teal'c's eyes there that it was like, it just seemed very familiar, and I remember on the backside of it, feeling like I had a responsibility to finish him, to see that piece through whatever, even though I had no responsibility, like by all rights, like, you know what? F him.
right. Yeah.
But it was still like, it's the responsibility of a son, I think, to put the period at the end of the sentence and move on. And so to see Teal'c in this moment where he was the one carrying Sokar, it's not that, or was carrying the frail past body of Apophis, not because he was the strongest or he was the only one who could carry him. It was right and proper that Teal'c be the one to send him on. And in many ways, like Apophis was his not good dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of struck me in that moment in a way it's never really struck me before, of like, I kind of think where Teal'c is coming from. Like he feels a responsibility to be the one to do that. Not even necessarily that there's a whole lot of pleasure in it. It's
a responsibility.
It's a responsibility. There is a bit of catharsis in it, I think. That's just my story. That's me interpreting Brent's own life onto a piece of art. So,
but I think for you, you can say your dad wasn't a good dude, and I didn't know him. I only know what you've shared of him, but I know there had to be some good in him because you came from him.
Well, there you go.
That said, though, he didn't give you much more during your life. That bit of life, though, was enough to give you that I need to carry this out.
Sure.
With Teal'c and Apophis kind of gave him life also. Made him a Jaffa. Made him the first prime. And so much of who Teal'c is a direct result of Apophis and decisions that Apophis made. So to see him dead, one, is something to celebrate for Teal'c. I have wanted this for so very long. Also, I have a responsibility here because I exist because of you.
And in a weird way, at that moment, it's not really a celebration. But the truth is, in the moment itself, it's very somber.
As I say, it really is. Martouf in this talks about all the crimes Apophis is guilty of, all the atrocities that he's committed.
Sure.
And he says he cannot escape punishment for this. And it's almost that where Teal'c has wanted the death of Apophis for so very long. He's wanted to punish him for everything he's done. Now he's punished. He's dead. He's a shell sitting there, just a body, nothing else. And he's like, wow, this really doesn't do it. The punishment actually didn't make anything better, and I still kind of have this hole in me. I need, like you said, need some catharsis, so I'm going to put him through the gate and feed him to Sokar, but this did not give me what I was hoping to get.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Before we gate into the rest of this episode, did you know you're missing most of the content from this podcast? Stargate SG-1 for the first time has an active and exciting Patreon that you can join right now by clicking the link in the show notes. Not only will you get access to the full, unedited podcast and reaction videos, you'll also be able to join a growing, vibrant, maybe even an intergalactic community. Subscribers even get access to all of our content from Babylon 5 for the first time. Don't miss out on this content and the amazing people. Just click the link in the show notes. Tilk thinks you should do it right now.
Indeed.
Turns out, you know what? That is not a message I think this show is going for, but I absolutely think that is contained within that moment right there.
I think so.
But you have to really read through the lines to catch all that. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff. I interrupted you.
Well, now I feel I have a couple other thoughts that just feel empty after this big conversation. But the one that I will, the two things that I'll hit, and then we'll dive into those sci-fi messages. One was that we learned a little bit more about Jolinar in this that I think is important, and that was Jolinar was executed specifically with this device that was then used on Apophis that really causes like this hyper aging thing to happen, and it's an excruciating way to die. So note. Also, a note on Catherine Powers.
Okay.
This is a good episode. It had a lot in it, and I enjoyed watching it. She's had a number of those episodes. Brief Candle, the Thor's episodes. They're like, these are good episodes. But just like the Thor's ones, geez, like, is she capable of writing an episode that doesn't feel like you're walking through molasses running uphill in the wintertime? Like, at some point, I'm just like, this episode's got to be almost done. And I looked at the little runner. It wasn't even halfway there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. The pace picked up a little bit, like in the middle of the last quarter. But just, I found myself getting bored more than once during this one. I hope you didn't find yourself getting bored, because there was some stuff I think to dive into in this one, intentional or not. What were the sci-fi messages you pulled out of this?
Oh gosh, Jeff. I mean, there were so many that they went into, and you know, a lot of times we talk about the intentionality of the message. I think they were all here. You know, one of the things we often talk about here in Stargate specifically is this idea that they introduce a concept and then they don't do anything with it. They just go on. They don't discuss it. This is probably about one of the better discussions of a topic that we ever got. And I'm not even really sure how well it was discussed, but there's a great conversation, I think, between Jack and Apophis that really sums the whole thing up, where Apophis is asking for a new host. That's the price for all this stuff that everybody wants. Because there's this debate of what do we do with him? What do we do with him? Should we have shot him? Should we just kill him? You know, does he have rights as an enemy who has been captured? Does he fall under the Geneva Convention, Jeff?
Right.
Yeah. And what is the purpose of the whole Geneva Convention? How do we treat humans? How do we treat people? What of the host? Do we have to consider the host in this whole thing? We saw the host. We heard from the host. We saw Apophis saying, I am scared. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And he gets this whole spot, and his whole thing is, I'll do all this stuff you want. Because turns out to the Gould, all that really matters is to live, not to live with quality. They just want to live, which I think might inform a lot with them when you think of them as slave masters and that sort of stuff. And as hosts, as parasites using hosts, well, at least you're still alive, because that's what really matters. But it's this, he says, is a single human life worth so much that you would risk the entire world? And Jack says, yes. That's why they call us the good guys.
Yeah, it's so good.
Such a great line. And, So I think it goes back to that. So what do we do with our enemies? What do we do? I think the two easy ones that always come to my mind, these are the easy ones to go to. There's Hitler from history. And then within our own lifetime, Osama bin Laden. Those are the two that my mind immediately go to. But you could go throughout all human history and find some big evil, archetype guy who is just worst of the worst. What do you do with them when you catch them?
Yeah.
Do you still treat them with any kind of respect? Do you give them medical care? How far, on some level, they were giving him medical care so that they could keep him alive to talk to him. Okay. But Dr. Fraser's like actively trying to save his life as well.
This is a sentient being right here. I'm a doctor. I'm going to protect it.
And listen, we could talk about it being for the host and trying to do it for the host. The host didn't even factor into the thing until halfway through the whole deal, or maybe even a little bit more. They were trying to save Apophis, not the host, at least at first. There was a concern for Apophis, even in the middle of that, though, that he wasn't tortured. They offered him morphine, comfort. They didn't have to give him morphine. That was not required to keep him alive. Or maybe, I don't know. Can you pass out and die from pain, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah, suppose.
But still, they would not let certain things happen. They weren't going to just toss his body back through the gate and let Sokar have his way. They were very against that for their own personal reasons, but also for humane reasons. That's when they really brought in the host. Martouf, Jack, Teal'c, all of these people, even Daniel, were constantly questioning whether or not Apophis just deserves whatever he gets. It was a constant question that they discussed, that they never gave us a direct answer. And I'm not mad at that, because lots of good sci-fi doesn't give you a direct answer. They present the question, they discuss it, they show it to you from both sides, and then they say, here you go, make a decision. Jack, though, specifically, is our stand-in. More often than not, he is the stand-in for the viewer. Okay, explain this really hard concept to me like I'm 8 years old. For all the viewing audience out there.
Yeah, because they don't get it either.
Right. He seems split at times. And I think the answer is because we are supposed to be split on something like that. Yes, there is a humanity. Yes, we do not want to torture. Yes, we do not want to we want to be better than our enemies are to us. At the same time, they're absolutely deserving of everything they get.
Yeah.
By the choices they made, they gave up their rights to comfort and to did they give up their human rights?
That's the question.
Maybe not. I do think Jack typically was on the side of, yeah, screw you, dude. I'm not doing anything for you. But still, there were times where it felt like he was kind of waffling both way to be a decent human, but to recognize, no, this is actually a really bad guy. And here's what we get to do with really bad guys. He's like, I just should have shot him. And he's right. It would have made it so much easier. Just shot him, be done with it. And I think he would have been well within his rights to do so. Talk about a clear and present danger. With that said, Jeff, I really thought it was there. I think it's a fascinating discussion. What do you do with an enemy combatant, an enemy general, when you capture them, who has truly been an awful, awful human being, committed so many war crimes? What do you do with them? How do you handle them? Jeff, I'm going to give this one 5 out of 7 chevrons.
Wow.
Because I think because it hit the message, it discussed it, it went back and forth, didn't really answer it. Is there more they could have done? Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot more they could have done. They could have had a lot more of the moral dilemma, the moral conversation, but they just allowed the characters to be in the moral dilemma without really discussing it a whole lot, which was okay. I'm not knocking it for that. But yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 5 out of 7. That is my completely accurate and random number that I pulled.
Accurate, immutable, made up number. I love that because what it does is, right now, based on everything that it showed in that episode, you and I could debate what's the right thing to do. It lays the groundwork for that conversation. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't force anything down it, but it opens the question up, and it makes it very easy for two people or a group of people to have a conversation about it. I think that's the thing that sci-fi does better than almost any other art form.
And especially when we not only recognized that there was still a host, but suddenly the host emerged and we started hearing the host, who's been under the spell for how many thousands of years at this point?
So long.
You've got to feel for that host at this point. Like, should we just put the host out of his misery at this point?
Is it mercy now?
Yeah. Well, he goes, I've been in a nightmare for so long. I'm waking up just to die. Like, well, that sucks.
Also, I want to see my wife and my kid. Like, it's been thousands of years and that's all I want. That was a cool thing. I think also that the host only wanted that. Also, all Apophis wanted was Shawray, was Amoet.
Eminette.
That's kind of sweet. That's romantic, And I mean, and it's powerful stuff.
So 5 out of 7 is what I'm gonna randomly give it. Jeff, I rated the episode. You, my friend, get to rank the episode. Now, this is 100% accurate, immutable, definitive. Our ranking of season 2, actually Jeff's ranking of season 2, Stargate SG-1. Jeff, our top 5 currently, I'm going to go from the bottom to the top. Number 5 is currently Spirits. That's where we found out about the Trinium. Number 4 is Thor's Chariot, a Catherine Powers episode. Number 3 is Secrets, where we find out about Jacob. The number 2 episode is Serpent's Grasp / Serpent's Lair. We're going to add another serpent to the top 5. Let's find out. And then our top episode of the season is The Fifth Race. Jeff, where do you place this episode, Serpent's Song?
Well, the top 5, like I said, has a Serpent's episode and a Catherine Powers episode. There will not be a second one of those in the top 5. But it's going to be close. I was waffling a little bit on just exactly where I was going to place it amongst the couple in this spot. But I feel, again, that I've really enjoyed this Jolinar story, getting to know the Tok'ra and all this stuff that's tied to that. And this touches on that in a real way. So I'm going to kind of keep it in that line as I put it just above in the line of duty, making it our new number 7.
Fair enough. Yeah, you do. You have clumped right there, 6, 7, and 8. Tok'ra parts 1 and 2, Serpent Song, in the line of duty. I dig it. I see one in there I still think is a bit low, but it's okay.
It's okay. But then you said duty, so.
I did. Well, Jeff, with that, that's going to do it for us here with Serpent Song. Another episode in the books. As we turn the page, Jeff, would you like to know where we're watching next week?
Yeah, let's hear it.
We are watching an episode. I want to see if you can figure out what this one's going to be about. We are watching an episode titled One False Step.
One False Step?
Yeah. Give it a guess.
Big high tension situation. I'm thinking of the scene in The Office.
Okay.
Which is a scene that's played out in many things, where everyone's holding their gun hands up and they're all pointing at each other. And whoever makes the next false step the whole thing's gonna break down into a big shootout. So some sort of a stalemate, and whoever makes the wrong step is gonna make the whole thing blow up. So are we able to find a diplomatic way out of this thing, or are things gonna escalate into a really big conflict?
You're a good guesser, Jeff.
I sure am. I think I've gotten one episode out of like the 50 we've watched so far. So,
well, folks, that is going to do it for us here on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Thank you guys so much for joining us, especially through some of the technical difficulties we had in tonight's episode. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a rating, a review. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel right out here at YouTube, and be sure to head over to patreon.com/Babylon5 First, or check show notes below for the most updated link and get all the behind the scenes, the full unedited videos, early access to notes, all sorts of stuff that's happening over there. Jeff, I don't even know what we're going to be doing by the time this episode gets out there, but it's going to be something cool. I promise you guys that. So make sure you head over there and let somebody know about this show. Share this show with somebody you know that loves Stargate SG-1, or maybe somebody who, like our buddy Jeff over there, needs to watch the show for the first time. So with that, guys, until next time, we'll catch you later.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
Wasn't there a time that you would die for me?
Yes, but that time is no more.
For crying out loud.